And welcome back. It is the JFK Assassination Audit, video number 57, and this is 11 February. Now, the way my mind works, it's always making connections. Sometimes I can't sleep because my mind is constantly boom, 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 boom. It used to be a problem, but I've learned how to use it to my advantage at my age now. So what I do is when either I'm lying awake at night or something jolts me out of my sleep, or I have the long train of thought of just continuous ideas popping in my head, I start writing those down and working with it, and then trying to organize it and put it in some kind of, logical order, because the brain doesn't work logically like you and I do. It just makes connections and then goes boom, 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 and it could be all over the board. And, unfortunately in today's education system, they call that ADD, ADH, whatever. I don't see it as that. I see it as just the normal way your brain works. But if you learn how to organize it, then you can work with it. So that's what I do. So going through this Mexico embassy thing I did yesterday reminded me of this movie that I remember seeing, 40 years ago? 38 years ago, called The Falcon and the Snowman. Great movie. Came out in 1985. It starred Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn, one of Sean Penn's very, very first movies, one of Timothy Hutton's, that's when they were just breaking out right there. I think Sean Penn even married Madonna around this same time. There was some good music by David Bowie and Pat Metheny, called This Is Not America. And, it's a really, really great movie. And essentially it's the story about these two kids that grew up together, like in the Valley, I think, or Malibu, or some rich white neighborhood in Los Angeles. I think it was the like Woodland Hills or something like that. So they grew up, they went to college, or at least I think Christopher Boyce did, or maybe I think Christopher Boyce tried to be a priest or something. That didn't work out. Andrew Dalton was always in trouble. He eventually got into selling drugs, importing drugs into the U.S., things like that. But eventually what happened is Christopher Boyce, I'm just going from memory from the movie, Christopher Boyce's dad got him a job in this area of the San Fernando Valley. There were a lot of defense contractors working for the space industry, for NASA, for the government, stuff like that. And there's always been this close connection between NASA and the CIA and the aerospace industry. You see this in the New Orleans, what's going on there, that all the people that end up hanging out with Oswald all end up working for NASA or the space industry when they leave the Riley Coffee Company. But anyway, so his dad gets him a job at TRW, which they made satellites back then, okay? And this is like the 1970s, early 70s, late 60s, probably early 70s, when all this was periodically going on. And so what he would do, these satellites would monitor communications, okay? So when you send something up to a satellite, back then it was pretty well open. It wasn't encrypted. And anybody, not just that satellite you're pointing to, anybody with the right technology could grab that data, that stream, and take some of it for themselves and monitor it, okay? And so that's what we had. We had satellites, not just near the Russians and the Chinese, but everybody, and we were monitoring everybody, okay? And so then this satellite would grab that information and download it to this center called the Black Vault, where Timothy Hutton was working. They would read through this information. If anything seemed really, really important, they would pass it on to a CIA contact they had that worked there. And all the other stuff they would just put in the Black Vault. And you had to have a clearance to get in there, and all these kinds of things to see this kind of data. So Timothy was doing pretty good. I mean, not Timothy. I'm sorry. Christopher Boyce was doing pretty good. And, working his job, got an apartment, got a girlfriend, stuff like that. But then he starts, this is back during the Nixon era, then he starts reading more details of this traffic that's coming through. Because before it would come on these teletypes, they'd look through it, make sure, it's sort of like an AP wire. They would look through anything important, and then the rest they would file away. It was all top secret. But he started reading, when on his off time, some of these transmissions that would come through. And he found out that the U.S. wasn't just monitoring, okay? They were interfering, not just in Russia, not just in China, the enemy, but even in our allies. So you'll see here, one of the things that really got him going was when they tried to, he came across a CIA plan to dispose of the Prime Minister of Australia because he wasn't favorable to what else the Nixon plan was in Vietnam. So they got rid of him. They axed him. And the CIA was involved in that, not just CIA, but the whole Nixon administration. So that turned him. And I don't know why he would have thought it would have been any different, but he thought that, somehow his reasoning was he wasn't really happy with what the government was doing. So therefore, he decided, instead of quitting, he decided to use that information to give to our enemies, the Russians, the Cubans, to equal out things. Okay? Usually these situations happen when some career bureaucrat has been overlooked for a promotion, or they're highly in debt, or they got alcohol or drug problems. This is more of a philosophical disagreement. Because usually these other people, that's when they go, they want more money, they got alcohol problems, they got debt problems, and they have access to information they're sure the Soviets or the Russians, the Cubans would be interested in, so then they pony it up, and they sell out the country for money. Well, he did it mostly for philosophical reasons, okay? He didn't agree with what the government was doing. So in the movie they show him, and so he knew that, they would periodically monitor his phone, monitor his mail, the government, because of his clearance, because you agree to that. So what he would do is he would give his information. He'd take pictures of these documents, maybe even steal some of the documents, and give it to his friend, his childhood friend, who's played by Sean Penn, whose real name was Andrew Dalton Lee. Andrew Dalton Lee was involved in drug smuggling and things like that. You see him have, he pays a guy, an amputee with a cask, and then the cask they put heroin and stuff like that inside the fake leg. And so Andrew was used to going down to South America. So, Oswald, they went to the embassy, the Russian embassy, that we went over yesterday in Mexico City. That's where Christopher sent Andrew Dalton. Now, you can tell in the movie, I don't know if this is in real life, but apparently Christopher was the smarter of the two. He gave him detailed instructions. Eventually, though, Andrew wanted to play also. And what I mean by that, he wanted to cut more cut of the money, okay, because he was trying to build his drug business and things like that. And that was, there's always jealousy in these things, and this is what brought him down, okay. So eventually, after all this, they go through. He gets caught, okay. Andrew gets caught by the Mexican police. They try to tie him to some kind of murder and drug dealing and stuff like that. They beat him up. He gets the Sylvia Duran treatment. We're going to go over the documents about Sylvia Duran and what happened to her with the Mexican police. And she was that person that was working at the embassy, the Cuban embassy, and encountered Oswald. So he gets beaten up, and then extradited back to the United States. They hand over the Mexican, their federales or their equivalent to the FBI, hand over this documentation of this secret data to our FBI. The FBI, they shake him down, and he has to rat out his friend. Okay? Eventually, Christopher gets caught, and he goes to jail and goes to prison. So the reason they call it the Falcon and the Snowman, because Christopher was into falconry. He had this falcon that would fly around and could see up high. Andrew was called the Snowman because, he was shuttling cocaine and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. I really like the character who plays, I don't know his name, this actor that plays the Russian official. I wonder if it's this guy. Hold on a second. No, I'll find him here. Oh yeah, Dorian plays Christopher's boss. Let's see. This Russian agent, this Russian embassy guy is really good. I can't. Where is this guy at? David Suchet. Yeah, he's an English guy. I believe he played in that TV show where he played a detective, a Belgian detective or something like that. But yeah, David Courtney Suchet plays the Russian handler for these guys, I guess you could say. So he was the guy, I'm sure there were multiple guys who handled this information. He really didn't like this Alex guy, who's I think it's a compilation, really, really did not like Andrew Dalton in the movie. He just, they despised each other. But they worked together because, Andrew wanted the money, and Alex, the Russians, I think it's interesting they use the name Alec, sort of hinting back to Oswald. And but anyway, I think it's interesting but what happened is they just really, the Russians didn't trust Andrew. He was unstable. He was on drugs most of the time. They found some of the information that he was giving them had been, he held back some information, okay, and was asking for more money. And so eventually what happens is they convince Christopher to come down to Mexico and meet with them to cut out Alex. And then that's when things go to shit, that Andrew gets cut out, the Russians are dealing directly with Christopher, and this is when Andrew goes off on his drug binges. And then you see there's this thing where he's, there's one scene just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if I can find it, but it shows Andrew outside the Russian embassy in Mexico City, and he's throwing messages over the wall, trying to get a hold of the staff inside. Eventually, I think he climbs the wall. Okay, so he climbs the wall, sneaks into the embassy. Almost impossible. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous they even put that in the movie. But that's what they're saying that he did. Eventually, what really happens is that the Russians get tired of him, and they're the ones that get the Mexican police to come and arrest him and beat him up and get him out of there. They're the ones that basically turn on him and turn him in. Okay, they didn't think though that he would give up them or Andrew, but that's what he does. Because the Mexicans tell him, hey, we're gonna, there was this guy that was killed around the corner. We think you were responsible for it. We're gonna leave you in jail until you can prove that you didn't do it, because that's Mexican law basically. It's Napoleonic law. You're under the government says you did it, so therefore you stay in jail until you can prove you didn't do it. But yeah, they show him, throwing paper over the wall trying to get in, and he climbs over the fence and shit like that. Just totally impossible. But anyway, it's a really good movie. Let me see. I think I've got a little preview here. Hold on a second. All right, this is one of the trailers here. I don't know the quality, but we'll see. It was 40 years ago, so.
They were best friends from boyhood. Then they committed a crime against their country. Within 18 months, they became the 2 most wanted men in America. Their story is true.
You'll be working in the system's nerve center.
Assassinato.
I am not.
You'll be receiving and transmitting correspondence designated top secret.
Comunista.
I am not.
You are not to discuss any aspect of your job.
Cop killer.
I am not.
Not with your parents, not with your girlfriend.
Oh yeah, they accused Dalton of being a terrorist and a cop killer.
I am a tourist.
Right there.
I am a businessman.
So you're a spy.
And there's Alec right there. He hates.
Do you have some
he hates Dalton.
identification?
I had no idea the extent of the lie, the level of deception.
Who did you receive your instructions from?
You want to be partners? I'm offering you a partnership.
You know, we waited a very long time to meet you.
This isn't a career for me.
This is a business, Chris. We've got to expand. I don't know who my friends are anymore. I don't know who to trust.
What's happening? Tell me. Please tell me.
Leave your bags behind. We're gonna get on the plane.
It's not over, Christopher. It's just beginning.
Yeah, it was really good. I really love that movie. But anyway, it kind of parallels and kind of shows you that Mexico City is a place that espionage happens. Okay? It's a good place for someone to go. And of course, knowing that, that's why the CIA, the federales, the FBI, they're going to monitor that embassy because they know that's where people are going to go. You know, you got a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, it's a great little movie. Let's see. Now, Andrew, he ended up going to jail, okay, for espionage. God, he was only like 20, 25, something like that. Let's see. Trying to think. Yeah, it says, in January 1977, with top secret microfilm in his possession. Wow, that's not even. That's like the Carter days. Wow. Was arrested by the Mexican police in front of the Soviet embassy in Mexico City for littering. Under interrogation and torture, he confessed to espionage. Contrary to Boyce's story, Lee never blackmailed Boyce, nor did he implicate Boyce in the espionage, and did not testify against Boyce. Oh, interesting. Lee was returned to the United States, where he was convicted of espionage on May 14. But how did they find out about it? That's interesting. He was sentenced by a federal judge, life in prison, and moved to federal penitentiary in Lompoc, while Boyce received a sentence of 40 years. Lee's heavier sentence for the same offense was likely due to the prior criminal record and admitted drug trafficking. Now, we'll get into this about Boyce. Lee was immediately reprimanded to another facility. Boyce approached Lee 24 hours before the escape and asked Lee to participate. Lee responded, "I came in the front door. I'm going out the same way." It's interesting that they portray Lee, Dalton Lee, the crazy one, as the crazy one, the drugged out guy, but he's the one that actually did the hard time and didn't try to break out. We'll get into this, what happened to Boyce. He actually ends up breaking out. Let's see here. After 21 years of incarceration, Lee was finally released on parole in 1998. Kathy Mills Boyce, an activist who had worked towards earning Lee's parole, turned her attention towards the release of Boyce, following Lee's freedom, and eventually married Boyce. After the release, Lee briefly worked for Sean Penn as Penn's personal secretary. That's interesting, I think. So, Sean Penn plays Lee, okay, in the movie in 1985, okay, And then when Dalton Lee gets out, he works as Sean Penn's personal assistant in 1998. I think that's pretty crazy. But so they make the movie look like, Christopher is the more stable, upstanding citizen, okay? And then that, Dalton Lee is like this drugged out loser that's always getting in trouble. But what happens is Christopher Boyce gets put in prison. Eventually, let me see here. Oh, it was Rancho Palos Verdes. Okay. Yeah, he was hired TRW in 1974 on Redondo Beach. He was processing Black Vault top secret information. So how these Black Vaults work, this is nothing top secret or new. Everybody knows this. They have these classified communication centers all over the country, even in Europe. And they would get this transmitted information either from satellites or telephone lines, whatever. And they would scan through it, to make sure there wasn't something of immediate importance. And then they would collate it, file it, they would put it by topics, and then they would transmit it out. Okay, so if there was something about Cuban mobilization in Africa or something, they would collate that out under those keywords, and that way people in other centers and other agencies could look up that in a centralized kind of data style or something. And then he started getting these misrouted cables, okay? It says, and it talked about the government of Go Whitlam in Australia. Boyce didn't think that we should be involved in that. He also saw stuff about the U.S. involvement in the 1973 Chilean coup, which is true. We were involved in that. We paid off their generals to start a coup against whoever that leader was, Pinochet, I believe. Not Pinochet, but the other guy. Allende, yeah. So he gave out this information, like it says here, to his friend Andrew Dalton Lee, and he went down to Mexico City, sold this for cash to the Russians, this Alec guy, which I think is a composite. He was eventually exposed and arrested. Let's see. Yeah, so they show him throwing paper over the wall in the embassy, and that's how they arrest him. But in the movie, they make it really harsh, like, hey, you're a cop killer. You killed this cop around the corner, didn't you? And then they beat him up and torture him, and, you're a traitor and all this kinds of stuff. And meanwhile, they've got, like, these white guys in the back. While the Mexicans are beating him up in the movie, these white guys are obviously CIA sitting in on the interrogation. And then that's when they find out he's got this top secret microfilm in his possession. And then they hand that over to the CIA and the FBI, and they arrest him. And let's see. Okay. So he ends up going to jail for 40 years. He actually escaped Lompoc and went on the run. He carried out 17 bank robberies, it's saying, in Idaho and Washington. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, to go from, disillusioned patriot to espionage to bank robber and escapee, that's even beyond what I would think would be normal. But anyway, he ends up doing that. And then I guess he was trying to get money to go to the Soviet Union. Let's see. Eventually, after over a year and a half, he was arrested in Port Angeles, Washington. So he was turned in by his bank robbing criminals. So he returned to prison. I guess they gave him more time because of that. Eventually, he was in FCI Sheridan, right down the road from where I was living. Let's see here. Says he was paroled from prison September 16th, 2002. a little more than 25 years. Let's see. He eventually married Kathleen Mills, who I believe was a paralegal or an attorney working to get his parole. But anyway, it was a really good movie. I really liked the movie there. Let me see here. All right, so we're going to get back on track here, and now we're going to go take a look at the Cuban embassy in Mexico City. All right, hold on one second. All right, so I've never been to Mexico City. I have no idea about the geography there. I'm assuming, like most cities, they have nicer areas, government areas, stuff like that. Like, you know, in D.C., they've got this area called Embassy Row where most of the embassies are located, and you'll find the Russian embassy over there too. So this looks like some kind of government area. You see here, there's the Russian embassy here. You've got some kind of national park. You got an anthropology museum, national auditorium. Yeah, see, this is like some kind of government area. I'm sure that the Congress and the presidential palace are somewhere in here. I don't know. But it's not that far up to the Cuban embassy. About 4.8 kilometers. So let's see, 4.8 times 0.6. About almost 3 miles. Okay, so if Oswald had to walk, he could get there in 45 minutes. But he probably took a taxi or took a bus or something like that. I don't know if this is the original place that the Cuban embassy was located back in 1963. I'm pretty sure that Russian embassy is the same location, but I don't know about the Cuban embassy. Okay. But anyway, let's take a look at this and see what we have here. Okay. All right, so here's our God's eye view, and yeah, so it looks like there's a couple of embassies located here. The Embassy of Panama, there's a university, there's Pemex. Pemex is the gas company of the national gas company for Mexico, and let's see. Okay. So let's take a look at this from the top. Okay, so you can see there's the embassy there. There's some kind of pattern courtyard or some kind of something there. Here's the wall. So here's like the conservatory, it says. There's the wall. There's the back street. There's some kind of doctor. Yeah, doctor's office. So either just this right here or this is going to be the Cuban embassy part. Okay? And you see how they've done this really well. They must have underground parking. This looks like a pretty new embassy, actually. You see what they've done is they've made it where you can't see the cars. So you can't tell who's in and who's out. Yeah, that's pretty smart. They probably put in underground parking. So let's take a look at some photos. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, though, about the Cuban and the Russian embassy in regards to Oswald. Now, I'm sure that the inside of those embassies is not new to the CIA or the FBI or the federales or something like that. But if you send in Oswald, you know, if he's playing his role as patriot, you can send him in to observe, okay? And he can observe to see if anything new. He can describe what the embassy, the inside of the embassy, what he sees inside the gate, and then they can compare that to what other people have put together, and they can kind of get a good description by putting together with Oswald, a composite of what Oswald says and other people have said of what the embassy is like inside, okay? And, you know, how many feet is it from the front door to the desk? How many lights, fixtures are there, okay? How many windows are on the left and the right in the lobby? How many columns are inside, you know, the main foyer? You know, is there a staircase to the right or to the left? How many doors are closed? How many doorways are open? Those kinds of things are really important, okay? And so if you send in multiple people, okay, you send in some guy from Mexico or some guy from Costa Rica or some guy from Canada going in to get a visa, and they're posing as tourists, you know, you can pay them or you can have a hook on them or whatever, and you get a composite of what the embassy looks like, and then also you get a composite of what things have changed in the last year or two, okay? All right, so let's take a look at these pictures here. 63 photos, wow, okay. So yeah, see, that looks pretty new, although that could have been built in the 60s. You know, maybe this is the newer embassy from the 1960s or 70s that they built. You know, maybe Batista's building, they sold that property and built a new one for the revolution there. You see it's got some murals or some kind of big reflective pool here. And then you see they got the gates, they got the cameras, and see here's the guard station, pretty well secured right there. You know, and notice, you see how they've got these little, these are to prevent vehicles from driving up on there. And they've got trees and poles strategically placed. So if you got a car bomb, you know, it's going to be pretty difficult to get up to the end on the sidewalk and then into the gate. And then you got the embassy set way back. So again, security and protection. You see there's that gate. There's the fence. Got a big open courtyard here. So you want to put water right there, because if you have just an open courtyard and this is concrete, if someone's able, say someone brings in two big dump trucks, and they punch one through the front gate and blast it open. The next one's going to come blasting through into the middle of the courtyard, blow himself up. Well, if you've got water here, he's not going to get as far. Okay, so that's using the old noggin noodle right there. All right, yeah, you can see a really good idea of what the security is like right there. You see, they've got two almost like pillboxes on the side, and see right in the center, dead center, they got this big old tree, and see they've got these little stumps here. They're like tank traps for cars. Okay, and see how they got this curb going up around the tree box. So this basically prevents someone from smashing into the gate. You've got also in the center here, the center lane of the main Broadway or Boulevard, you've got, you know, it goes up just high enough to catch the bumper. So, you know, the Mexican police are going to be working with the Cubans to prevent any kind of penetration, because like I said, you want to protect everyone's embassy because you want them protecting your embassy in their country, you see? All right, we got pictures of, what's that, Fidel Castro. I don't know who that is. Probably it's another revolutionary leader. Guevara. Not Guevara, one of those guys. Maybe that's Raul. I'm not sure. Here's something, directions in Spanish. It's probably saying when you can come in here, when you can't. We're just going to skim through these real quick. Yeah, see they got the little pillboxes there. And see they've got these windows all black so they can see what's going on out there. Yeah, there's another pill. You see the pillbox right there? Bulletproof. I'm sure that's bulletproof glass. Surprised. These might be firing points here. I doubt the Mexicans are gonna allow them to have firing points for machine guns, but you know, I wouldn't put it past them. Let's also not forget that Mexico City was where what was that guy's name? Trotsky ended up going to Mexico City. When he went up against Stalin after Lenin died, Trotsky was head of the Red Army. Okay, he trained the Red Army. He's basically in control of it. Stalin came in, worked his way into power, and eventually forced Trotsky to flee. Okay, and Trotsky flees to Mexico City. Okay, and he's there until he's assassinated. Stalin, like Putin, sends out hits teams against his enemies. And this is what he did with Trotsky. They assassinated Trotsky, I think, back in the 30s or something like that. But it was in Mexico City where he was assassinated. That might have been Trotsky, actually. See more pictures here. You can see how they've got these curtains. They can pull these curtains. See how it's all black glass. I'm sure that's all bomb-proof, bulletproof. You can kind of get an idea how thick it is there, you see. That's a pretty good scheme to set up. Because see, if anything happens down here in the courtyard, bomb goes off or something, you're up a little higher, you see how it's reinforced concrete, you're going to have a little bit more protection there. Yeah, there's what? Fidel Castro, Mexico, Cuba. This must have been when I think Castro died, right? You see now you get a little picture here of in warfare, trench warfare and tank warfare, they're called dragon's teeth. They're a lot bigger though, and they usually go up, about this high and come down, and that's when the tanks they roll up on them, they get stuck, and they can't get over. This is the kind of the miniaturized version for cars and trucks, okay, and that's to slow down any kind of truck trying to smash into this fence here. Now another thing too, you see how they've got, usually how they would have it is the top layer of teeth here on the fence would be facing outward. So you'd have to go up, inverted, and over. But this one, is keeping you from going over. So it works both ways, I guess. Now, I don't know what the situation is with going to Cuba nowadays. I think did Obama open up Cuba to airline passengers and tourism and stuff like that, and then something happened with Trump where he rescinded that? I'm not sure what the situation. I would never want to go to Cuba, of course. I don't care if the hotels are cheap or whatever. But you never know what's going to happen in Cuba. It's still a military dictatorship. Okay, let's not get around it. It's a military dictatorship. The people aren't free there. That's just the reality. So Oswald came to this embassy. I don't know if it was this embassy, because this one looks pretty new. He tried the Russian embassy, couldn't get in there. He couldn't get into Russia from there, couldn't get a visa from there. And so he went to the Cuban embassy, hoping to get a transit visa. Okay, and apparently, I guess if you get into Cuba, then he could go straight into Russia. But I don't understand why he would have done that. Why don't we just go back to Finland like he did before? Or it doesn't. What the whole situation with Oswald trying to get back into Cuba or back into Russia again doesn't make any sense, because he had already written in his diary, a couple of months before he even met Marina, that he was determined to go back to the U.S., that Russia wasn't what he thought it was. Okay, so Oswald, if he was a Marxist, if he's not playing a role, he's disillusioned Marxist, okay? So he had his ideals, reading a book about communism, and then he sees the reality, and then he realizes that, this is not what I thought it was, and, actually it's probably better in Texas, And everybody's had this situation. Everyone. I mean, think about it. If you've been on, especially nowadays, if you chatted with someone, you met someone online, you chatted with them, and then you go to meet them, there's this expectation, okay, that what they're like, how they talk, their habits, and things like that certain things come across a certain way, whether you're texting them or, you're messaging with them on Facebook. That's different than sitting down and having a meal and hanging out with them, walking around, and then even living with them is completely different, okay? So everybody has this expectation. So Oswald would have this, he's disillusioned with the Marines, I guess, if he's not playing this part. And then he has this expectations that, it's always better. That saying, the grass is always greener someplace else, okay? And I'll put it to you this way. I've gone out with a lot of different girls, and I broke up with girls because I'm thinking, I want to go out with this other girl because she looks better, prettier, nicer, things like that. And then, I'm going to leave those problems behind with the one girl and go to the next girl. And what you find out is that there's just going to be problems there also. There's always problems, okay? Nothing is ever perfect. No one's ever perfect. If you're looking for someone perfect, you might as well, just accept reality that no one's ever going to be perfect. We're all human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. No one's going to be Jesus Christ, okay? Jesus Christ, they nailed him up on a cross, okay? And that's from a good Jewish boy here. I'm saying that. But I'm just saying that no one's perfect. No place is ever going to be perfect. I've been from city to city. I've lived in Dallas. I've lived in Atlanta. I've lived in New Jersey. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in California. I've lived in Oregon. Lived in Hawaii. Lived in Washington. I've lived out of the country in Israel, and no place is perfect. Okay, there's always going to be problems. My point is that if Oswald was really, a textbook librarian type Marxist, he would have these ideals in his head of what it was like. And then when he gets there and he works there for 2-3 years, and it's cold and it's drab and it's, it's not as beautiful and you don't have as much freedom, then it starts to gnaw on you after a while. You get used to the way certain things, you can say what you want, you can do what you want, you can go to the library, you can read what you want, you can write what you want. In America, even in places like Texas, with a bunch of right-wing crazies down there, it's still better there than in Minsk. So if he's this idealist revolutionary, that would wear on him, and eventually he would say, well, I'm going to go back. I made a mistake, stuff like that. So, but if that's true, okay, let's just say that's Oswald. That's the Oswald we're dealing with, the idealist, the self-taught Marxist who taught himself Marxism and Russian in the Marines, okay? So if that's true, he comes back in June of 1962. Within 1 year, okay, July, August, he's passing out pamphlets, fair play for Cuba. By September, October, let's say a year and a half, he's trying to get back into Russia. What happened? Okay? Why, if it's so bad that he didn't want to stay there, and he spent a year trying to get back, because in 1961 is when he started trying to go back. So it took him over a year and a half to get back. Okay? But when he gets back after a year and a half, he's trying to go back to Russia again. So if he's this idealist, and he's got this in his head the way Russia and communism is, and he's disappointed when he gets there, and he spends a year and a half trying to get back to the United States, after a year and a half in the United States, now he tries to go back to Russia. That doesn't make any sense. Okay? Now, let's put on our Oswald agent cap. Okay? So if Oswald is an agent, he's playing a role, Okay, he's been given an assignment. Okay, we want you to get on to Mexico. We want to stir up some shit. And what we're going to do is going to have you go down there, say some crazy shit, say you want to get into Russia, say you want to get into Cuba, say you're a Marxist, all this kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, and then we're going to monitor, and then you keep your eyes open what you see, and then come back and tell us. And then we're going to monitor the results of the shakeup and the shit that you stir. Okay, so what they would do is send Oswald in as a provocateur, if he's Agent Oswald, to shake them up, maybe come across as a little crazy. Okay, it's going to frighten them. They're going to be like, why is this guy wanting to get into Russia? Why go back to Russia? He was already here. He left. Why, a year and a half later, why does he want to go back? Okay, he's sitting there crying and pleading. I mean, I've read the report by the agent, the KGB agent who filed the report. And then the CIA is going to monitor those reports. They're also going to have their own, assets. People are going to report back, yeah, there was this crazy guy. He went by the name of Lee Oswald, okay, and he said this and he said that, and this is the way the Russians reacted. And he immediately, the chief consular guy immediately called this person and that person and telex this person. And then from there, they're going to know who's KGB. They're going to know the chain of command. If it goes from one guy to the next guy to the next guy to the next guy. Okay, just like you see on those FBI documents, okay? Here, I'll show you. Hold on a second. All right, so I'm not finding it, sorry. But you'll see, and we'll go over some documents later, you'll see all these FBI documents, okay? And then it'll have who it's going to. And then it'll CC. It's always usually, it's either Tolson or Hoover. Or even, what was that guy's name? The Watergate guy. I can't remember his name. Anyway, so it'll have those guys. Depending on what department they're looking at, it'll CC those guys. And from that, you know who's in charge. Okay? Because just like, I've worked at corporations before, and we'll get an email out, okay? Or I'll get an email to me from my boss, and it's been CC'd to his boss, that, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, or we're going to have a meeting at, at this time or something like that. And he'll CC his boss, or he'll CC everybody that's supposed to get a copy of it, okay? That's how you find chain of command. And so that's, if the FBI is monitoring, the CIA is monitoring this stuff, they send Oswald in to shake up the shit, okay? You ever seen those things where it has like a nest of wasp or bugs or something? They take a stick and they shake it up and they shake it up and they shake it up, and all of a sudden you got bugs and roaches and wasps flying in all directions. That's what Oswald, if let's say we're dealing with the Oswald wearing the Patriot instigator hat, that's what he's doing. He's going to Mexico City, he's shaking it up, and then the CIA, the FBI, whoever his people are going to sit back and watch and see who gets in that chain of command and contacts. Okay, they may have a good idea of who is in that chain of command, but they can also confirm it and maybe even add on other people. Okay, and then you're going to have assets inside this embassy, inside the Cuban embassy. You're going to have some little old lady, some little old Mexican lady that's going to come in there and be a clerk typist, for the Cubans, because they can't fly all these Cubans over. And they're going to have some little old lady or some guy that's going to come around at night and empty the trash cans, and he's going to, wipe off the desk and vacuum the floors. And along the way, he's going to take pictures and he's going to look at things and pick up things, okay? This just the way things happen. If that's possible, okay? So that's what I think what's going on is Oswald's doing that, because you got to think about it. Think about it logically. Oswald gets fired in July from his job at the Riley Coffee Company, okay? In August, he's out on the street passing out FPCC flyers and gets arrested. Then he's on radio, he's on TV, okay? Then, he's he's fired. He doesn't have any money. His wife is still there until end of September. So he goes, let's say July to August, August to September, September to October, 3 months without a job, because he doesn't even start this other job at the Texas School Book Depository until the 13th. So he's probably not even getting a paycheck until the end of October. So he's going, we'll say half of July, August, September, October, 3.5 months with no paycheck. Now he applied for unemployment, so he's getting like $50 a week or something like that from unemployment, I believe. How is he able to put his wife in a car, pack all this stuff, and send her to Dallas with some money to eat on? And how is he able to afford a bus ticket all the way to Mexico City, accommodations in a hotel for a couple of days, and then come all the way back? How's that possible? Well, he's got to be working for somebody, okay? Because the guy's broke. The guy is completely broke. This is why his wife's upset with him, okay? So he's getting his money, okay, if you want to say there's idealistic communist Oswald that wants to go back to the Soviet Union, he's broke. He's got no money. He's living off unemployment, $50 a month or a week or whatever it is, okay? But you got FBI agent, DIA agent, CIA agent, Oswald. Now all of a sudden he's got money. Funds have been expended for him to go out there. Okay? And see, now you got to think, well, why, after Oswald is caught, would the FBI and the CIA come out and put out all these memos saying, hey, we think this guy was down in Mexico City at the Russian embassy on the night of the 22nd? They knew. How did they know that? How they know that so fast? Okay? Well, you've got different departments inside the CIA, inside the FBI, that are not always communicating with each other. You've got an operations department, a secret operations department, that only a few people are going to know about, top secret, information, because they're paranoid like Engel that there's other leakers inside the CIA. Okay? So they're going to have a special operations with Oswald. They're going to send him on a mission. He's going to shake up the shit. They're going to monitor who these guys report back to and what they say about this Oswald character again. And then later on, they're going to use Oswald and use this situation, okay, to show that he's crazy, okay, and that, he was just trying to get into Russia before, but then he came back to Dallas because he couldn't get into Russia, and he killed the President of the United States. Now, I know it seems like a far stretch, but, if you're thinking, what was that they used to say about Trump? He's playing like 5D chess or 3D or whatever the hell that is he's playing, which I never believed that. I think Trump's a big idiot, just falling all over the place and on his sword. But these guys, all from Yale and Harvard, they're all brilliant, geniuses. They're going to be thinking 5-10 steps ahead, okay? So that's what they would do. Anyway, so let's finish with the Cuban embassy here. Hold on one second. Maybe see if we can find some more pictures. I don't know what picture we're on here. There's more of the pillbox. So you have to go there and say, hey, I'm Jill, whatever, Joe, whatever, and I'm here to see so-and-so at 5 o'clock. And then they look on the little board, they write it down, and then they say, okay. All right, there's just more pictures here. Oh, looks like they even have a bar in the embassy. Oh, and they even have like a little souvenir shop. Well, why wouldn't they? I guess why wouldn't they, huh? And there was, the Cubans had an embassy in Mexico. That means there were Mexicans that were going to Cuba on vacations, students. They had a really good medical school in Cuba, so they were probably training them for that. See how they got the doors locked there? The gate. They got, what is that, a metal detector right there? Habanos. So those are going to be cigars. That's what they're famous for. Remember, you used to have to go to Cuba or the Bahamas or Jamaica to buy Cuban cigars. And then you couldn't bring them back in. If you didn't declare them and they got found, then you could get in serious trouble. All right. So I think we're almost done with the pictures. Just don't want to miss anything here. Oh yeah, see, look. That looks like Che Guevara right there. I never have been able to figure out why people at these universities would wear these stupid Che Guevara shirts. Okay? And they're liberal arts universities, and they would wear, you know, because the university is where you go to learn knowledge, and it's free and open, and nothing's out of bounds to read or study. But they'd wear these fucking Che Guevara shirts, you know, who's one of the main leaders of a communist country that controlled what you could read and, you know, controlled where you went, controlled your movement, everything completely opposite of liberalism. Okay? I never have been able to figure that out. It doesn't make much sense. Alright, so I think we're almost done here with the pictures. Alright, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So we're going to go on our little street view tour. Going to go around the embassy and see what we can find out. Alright. Okay, so we're going to start here on this corner. We're going to work our way around. Now, you see how they got the little dragon's teeth there? Okay. And we're going to come back to, actually no, let's go forward here. So yeah, so you got the dragon's teeth, and yeah, see there's an underground parking, just like I thought. So they're going to have this gate right here. This is where the cars are going to come in. They're going to have underground parking. That's going to hide the cars from the satellite. Now, if you've got a gate here, of course the logical thing to do would be to be monitoring it. Okay? So if you look across the street, there's nothing there. Let's take a look. Yeah, see, this is how they would do it in America. They'd have these little concrete, you see here, on the corner. That way the cars can't hop up on the curb. They're blocked. But let's take a look here. So there's a camera right there. Now that could be put in by the federales to watch, but they also could be watching the Cubans. You see? You could also have a guy right there in that window. You see how this has been cleared out right here? I'm sure that's probably been cleared, completely clipped back for probably 40, 50 years there. I don't know what this is. Maybe that's another embassy there. But you see how that window's painted over? Yeah, so you can stick some cameras right there. They even got satellite dishes. Now let's take a look across here. So here's another one. Now it looks like that either that's under construction or that's brand new. And see how the windows are darkened? You see how the windows are darkened? Yeah. And see how the trees have been cleared? So yeah, you could definitely monitor that gate from right there. You see they got the little dragon teeth. You got the little old tree right there. And is that a federale? I don't know who that would be, but anyway, there's another pillbox. That's pretty well designed embassy, I'd say. Alright, so let's go on down a little bit. This is going to be this cultural center. I doubt this is part of the embassy. Yeah. Well, that might be part of it, though. That could possibly be some kind of like federale monitoring station. Could be. I don't know. Possibly. But that looks like where the embassy ends. Like right there. Okay, so we'll go around the block. It may take a while here. This is the cultural center. It says on the map. Let's see. Hold on one second. Alright, so we're coming around the back end of the embassy here. Now you can tell there's still more of the cultural center because see how the security, the fences are pretty low. But then we're going to run right up on it here. Let's see. Alright. So that looks like the back of the embassy there. Hold on one second. So it looks like we're here at the back end of the embassy. We haven't gotten down quite to it yet. It looks like they're filming some kind of movie. You see all these movie trucks here on this street for some reason. Maybe they're using this building there. But anyway, let's get down a little bit further. Okay, yeah, so that looks like, yeah, that's more the embassy right there. You see? There's more of it. The back end, you can tell, look at the wire. You see how the wires, the walls are high, the wire's high. I haven't seen any cameras yet. Let's take a look at this pole here. Nothing yet. There's no gate yet. Here we go. Alright, so yeah, you can tell it's part of the embassy. You see there's the emblem. There's the pillbox. They've got a gate here, and this is a doorway to go through. And so this is kind of the back gate. So let's take a look. We're going to come down this way a little bit and see what we have across the street. Now, I'm not sure what that is there, but you could easily, you see how these windows are blocked off here? You could easily have some cameras up there monitoring things, even all the way over here. Let's see. Even right back in there. Let's take a look. Yeah, you see right there? All the windows are grayed out. So you could definitely monitor that building or that back gate from right there. And, you know, it's just a matter of basically going to the Mexican police or the government or you know, or this tenant and saying, hey, you know, we want to set up some cameras here and we're going to give you whatever, pay for your entire rent for your building if you let us do that. You know, and most are going to be willing to do that. And you see how they've tried to block it off by putting trees right there. And then you park your car here. See, this car is to prevent a backdoor car bomb. Okay, so you put a car here, and that would slow down anything trying to ram through that gate. Now, I think that's it on the embassy there on the back, and I think the rest of this is like a school. Yeah, it's some kind of school. Okay, let's go around back to the front. Hold on one second. Oh, wow, interesting. Look at that. There's a big synagogue right there near the Cuban embassy. Wow. I don't know the name of that one. Again, like I said, I've never been to Mexico City. I really had no reason to go to Mexico City, but I might have to go down to Mexico City just to check it out. Oh, this is a seminary of some kind. Let's see. Oh, a seminar. Interesting. Yeah, Mexico City, I understand, is pretty big. I mean, it's actually 2 to 3 times bigger than Los Angeles, from what I understand. It's probably like 20 million people in Mexico City. It's like huge, you know. But it's very active, like volcanic, earthquake-wise. I understand they have a lot of earthquakes there. So it's similar to Los Angeles in that aspect. Now, I'm not sure what this place is here, but you can see there's the wall. You see they got this little wall right here, and then, let's see, yeah, there's another entrance. So maybe one is to go in and one is the exit. Okay, so then, again, if you exiting here, it stands to logic that you're going to put up some kind of monitoring over here. So I don't see anything right across from there. Let's see. Bronches Artístico. Probably some kind of art gallery. But again, you could easily put cameras right there. And the way cameras are nowadays, I mean, you could literally put cameras anywhere. You know, you could have, at night, they could fly little drones around and place cameras up on the roof. You know, it's just amazing what they can do nowadays. They have these little butterfly drone, wasp drone cameras that can fly in and just monitor everything. But anyway, that's the Cuban embassy. I don't think, like I said, this embassy was the one that Oswald went to because it looks pretty new. It looks like probably built in the 70s, something like that. But you get kind of an idea of the security, how they set it up, and you know how it would be really difficult for Oswald to get in and out easily without being seen by somebody. You know, Mexican federales, the CIA, I'm sure. You know, I'm sure with all our allies, you know, the Canadians, the British, the Germans, the the Mexicans, I'm sure we have some kind of security arrangement with them. Either for them to let us set up our own monitoring room or cameras, whatever, or have some kind of joint operation, okay? And we work with them and share intelligence and stuff like that, you know. I mean, if you think about it, if you're a third world country, that's a good way to get aid from the United States. You know, yeah, we'll let you set up your cameras around all these embassies, but we're going to need this and that and this kind of training for our guys and this kind of equipment and you know, stuff like that. These are all, you know, it's give and take. You don't get something for nothing, you know. That's the way it works. It's the real world. All right, so that's enough of that embassy there. We did the Falcon and the Snowman video. Gosh, we're almost out of time here. Oh, I wanted to go over the Moscow rules. We'll end with that. How about that? So the Moscow rules basically is rules that have been applied around the world by Western intelligence, especially the CIA, in dealing with Russian intelligence, okay? Especially if you're in, or counterintelligence, especially if you're in Moscow or Russia, or at that time a Soviet satellite, say like Bulgaria, East Germany, and these are rules that you would go by as State Department officials and even CIA agents, okay, that you would go by to keep you safe, to keep you out of jail, to keep you from being followed and monitored. They're gonna follow you anyway, okay? But these are things, rules that they've come across or written down because, you know, what do you call it? Hard knocks. They've learned lessons from making mistakes. That's how you learn lessons, is you make mistakes. Now, the Spy Museum, they've got a lot of good videos and stuff. I really I subscribe to their channel. This is how I learn a lot of these things. Also spent like 10, 20 years reading all these books. And I never thought I'd be putting this kind of stuff together. But, you know, back then when I first started reading all these books, it was just for entertainment. Now it's educational and to spread knowledge, what I know. Or what I think I know, I should say. So here's the Moscow rules. Okay? 1, assume nothing. Okay? So you don't want to assume that you're not being followed. You don't want to assume that you are followed. You just want to assume nothing. Number 2, never go against your gut. Okay? If you're going down an alley and it looks like you're about to get jumped, now it's not beyond KGB to hire criminals, okay, to beat you up, attack you, rob you. If they think you're CIA and they think you're important enough, maybe even kill you and make it look like a robbery or an accident, just some common criminal. Or just steal what you have. You know, they want to find out what you got in your backpack. They want to find out what you have in your briefcase. And then just pass it off as a robbery. Oh, well, we didn't do this. This is just some common criminal thugs, you know. And they may even catch the guys and take copies of, you know, make photos of all the information, give it all back to you, and say, oh, we're sorry. Wink, wink, nod, nudge, nudge, you know, like that. It's a game. They play a game, we play a game. Okay? Just like the CIA, you know, the CIA, the FBI, they're going to deny it, but if they want to get in a place bad enough and they want that information, it's not beyond them hiring criminals, burglars that are experiencing that to go in and break into a place or even, you know, jack somebody and rob them and then give that information up and then they get paid. It's not beyond the Russians doing it. It's not beyond our guys doing it, okay? All right. So, yeah, never go against your gut. If something doesn't feel right, back off. You never lose by going with your gut, okay? I always go with my gut. I always go by – I had my own set of rules before Moscow rules, and then I incorporated Moscow rules into my rules that I had for security, okay? And it's always, you know, stay in well-lit areas with lots of people. Never go someplace by yourself. Always be ready to run. The best defense or the best offense is defense. Never, ever, like in these stupid kung fu movies, think you can fight 4 or 5 guys. It's just not going to happen. Okay? The best defense is to always avoid any kind of conflict. That's the one thing I always go with. An area looks bad, a bunch of kids hanging down the street looks bad, don't go down there. Okay? Anyway, everyone is potentially under opposition control. So, I watched this video by Julia Ioff, and she's this person that was born in Ukraine, came here as a child, grew up in the United States, and then now she does all these videos about Putin. She got some really good insight about Russian, mentality and why Putin does the things he does. And she's also a journalist, and she was talking to another journalist friend of hers, and journalist friend said that, you know, a lot of times if you're a correspondent in Russia, the Russian government, in order to give you a visa, will set you up in these apartments that they own, and they've wired them. You know, you can't stay in Russia unless you stay in these apartments, okay? And they've got them wired to the hill. They've got all the keys and everything. So this one journalist started, I guess, had raised the hackles of the KGB or the SVR or the whoever. I forgot who the interior people are now. But she raised their hackles, and so to let her know that they didn't trust her, they started going to her apartment, okay? They'd open her windows in the middle of the winter, okay? They'd leave the door open. They'd leave the water running. Leave the shower running. One time I think they took a dump. Somebody peed on her carpet, and somebody took a dump in her toilet and didn't flush it. And that was just to let her know that she wasn't in control. She had no control. They were in control. And they could come and go and do whatever they wanted to do. Okay? And how this applies again, to Oswald in the JFK assassination, is that they would have done the same thing to Oswald. They would have let him know from the get-go that, yeah, you may have come here on your own free will, but we're in charge, we're in control, we're going to monitor you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? And there's nothing, you can't get away from it. Everybody that's around you is probably reporting back on you. This is probably weighed on Oswald. This is probably one of the reasons why he wanted to leave. Okay? This is probably also one of the reasons this girl that he was in love with before he met Marina, he asked her to marry, and she said no, because she didn't want to be under being monitored because she's a girlfriend, wife of this defector, American defector. She saw the writing on the wall. She knew what was what. Okay? Anyway, do not look back. You're never completely alone. And this is true. Okay? No matter where you go, somebody's going to be watching you. Like I said, they play games, we play games. We're watching them, they're watching us. They would have been watching Oswald wherever he went. Like I said, I've read the KGB report. They're following Oswald in the woods while he's, hunting with his rifle. And they were afraid of getting shot because he was such a bad shot. Anyway, go with the flow, blend in. And that's the way you want to do with everywhere. Okay, because if you stick out, okay, you're going to raise the hackles. And they're going to wonder why you're sticking out. And that's going to bring you under more scrutiny and more monitoring. Number 6, vary your pattern and stay within your cover. Okay? So that's very important. I do this all the time. I did this long before I even read about these rules. We used to go running. I ran 4 days a week. I'd have 5 different routes I'd run. And I would rotate that through and, and I'd vary my time within 5-10 minutes. Leave her a little 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes later, or right on time. That way they never knew exactly when I was going and where I was going. Okay? And then another thing you can do, look at mirrors. Look in windows. You go by a storefront, just look in the mirrors, look in the windows, and see who's coming up behind you. Okay? It's going to be really hard to spot them, I guarantee you. Anyway, lull them into a sensation or a sense of complacency. So, you don't want to act like you're being followed. You just want to act cool, calm, and collective. Just go about your normal routine. Eventually, they're going to get cool, calm, and collective and not monitor you as well. Okay? Common sense. Do not harass the opposition. Well, if you see someone following you, don't come up to them and say, hey, you better stop following me. Okay? Because that's going to get you thrown out of the fucking country right there. Pick the time and place for action. So, there was this lady in the Moscow embassy. She was just a secretary. And she was supposed to leave information, or supposed to pick up information from an asset that the CIA had developed in the Russian government. Well, what happened is that guy got caught. And then they went down and said, hey, when's your next meeting? Where's your next meeting? And they monitored that place, but she didn't know. And so she went up, and she didn't go by her gut. She saw people on the bridge. She should have turned around and walked away, but she decided, to keep going and to complete the mission. And once she did that, and she picked up the packet of information that the guy supposedly left for, was really the KGB left a blank packet for, they had her. They knew what she was there for. The game was up. Okay, she denied it. They held her in prison for quite a while. Eventually they released her back to the U.S. I think they exchanged her for someone. But go with your gut. If things don't look right, turn around and walk away. Keep your options open. Okay? Now, just like Oswald, okay, he went in, told him nicely to his Inslaw, whatever that lady was called, her tourist guide, that he wanted to defect, and that didn't work. So he kept his options open, and played his wild card, which was slitting his wrist. Okay? Last thing they wanted in Russia was a dead Marine committing suicide in the bathtub, bloody bathtub, okay? So he played his options open. And that's how he was able to stay. Okay? Anyway, that's the main rules right there. Again, I would add to this that always play defensive. Okay? Never look for a fight. Always walk away from a fight. Live to fight another day, I guess you could say. It's not like in the movies. If you're being followed, whether it's by a gang of thugs or a gang of counterintelligence guys, you're going to lose. Okay? Anyway, so that's enough there. That's the Moscow rules. That's how it works. And we'll just keep driving on with this. I'm going to switch back to the Fraser testimony tomorrow, but I wanted to get like 2 days of this because I really like doing this about the embassy. So we're going to keep going over embassies, and we're going to start off, we're going to do Russian, Cuban, Chinese, Iranian, North Korean. I'm not going to do the American embassy because I don't want to indirectly give away anything. We're going to go like Mexico City, Ottawa, D.C., London, Berlin, Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. We're going to do all those. We just keep going, see what we can see. It's going to get boring after a while because you're going to start seeing the same patterns, the same type of defenses, the same type of monitoring setting up. But that's how you learn. If you start seeing these things start come up all across the world at all these embassies, then you know what to look for. You know what's going on. And again, how this relates to the JFK assassination is that we're sending fake defectors. They're sending, Nerashenko, fake defectors. They're sending over Marina Oswald. This is what they're doing. They're using these embassies as cover. Okay? We're faking them out. They're faking us out. This is what I think that, again, Oswald's, I'm pretty sure, 75% sure Oswald was not this delusion communist, okay, that left Russia, and then it took him a year and a half to get out, and then it took him a year and a half in the U.S. to decide he wants to go back. No. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think Oswald is a soldier. He's doing what he's told to do in the best way he knows to do it. And a lot of times, if you train someone too much, the opposition's going to see that, and they're going to know that, and they're going to spot that. So the best way is to send in somebody half trained, half blind, and therefore he looks sincere. So again, that's what I think would happen. They sent Oswald in, again, down to Mexico City to monitor things, to report back, but also to shake things up so they can monitor the communications and see who is in charge of those things. Okay? Because believe me, there are other Americans that are going down there that are working with the Russians. Okay? Working with the Cubans. And the CIA wants to find out who these guys are. The best way to find out who those guys are is to find out who the decision makers are in that chain of command. Okay? Once you got the chain of command down, you can monitor them and you can find the double crosses, the traitors, okay? The defectors. All right, so we're going to stop here and we'll pick up tomorrow.